citizens under attack by radical Islamic terrorists. No, these attacks came as the Palestinian Islamic Jihad Secretary General of that movement, Zaid al-Nakala, well, guess where he was visiting? Where else? Tehran. Sitting with the theocratic regime's president and other officials. You know, some see Tehran's hand behind these threats and the attacks against Israel. Former Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has spent his life warning about terrorism, the threat from Iran, and the Palestinian terrorists, and joins us now from Tel Aviv. Mr. Prime Minister, always wonderful and great to see you. Thank you for joining us here on Fox News.
Good to talk to you, Eric.
You know, it is and has been, as you know so well firsthand, a generational battle for the West, for Israel, the Jewish people, against this radical Islamic terrorism. How can it be finally wiped from the face of the earth?
Well, you have to keep fighting it because, you know, it's a test of wills. You're quite right when you said that Islamic Jihad, the terrorist group that is firing indiscriminately into Israel, 560 rockets, that's 560 attempts to murder Israelis, innocent civilians. They're guided by Iran. They're a wholly owned subsidiary of Tehran. So obviously we're engaged in a long-term battle. Now, it's one of those civilizational battles that the ones with the stronger will, the stronger commitment to freedom, the stronger commitment to our values ultimately win. And Israel has been winning. You know, the places they're firing right next to the Gaza border, they've been teeming now with residents because people know that we'll hit them every time they try to hit us. And we build apartments there and people come and live there. It's a test of will, and our will is stronger, and we're going to beat these terrorists.
And meanwhile, Hamas, we're told, is kind of sitting on the sidelines. Has there been a change in policy by Israel, employing, what, 14,000 or so Gazans, up to 20,000 coming in, and they're sitting back watching, you know, the more radical, if that could be the case, Palestinian terrorists attack Israelis, yet they know, wait a minute, look at the progress your country has made.
First of all, there's competition between Hamas and Islamic Jihad, you know, who can out-radical whom. But in the case of Hamas, the dominant group in Gaza, it was hit very hard in a previous operation that we did. We just rolled them back, set them back 10 years. We destroyed their attack tunnels, killed their senior commanders, wiped out their aerial and naval capacities. So, you know, they had a real drubbing. And, you know, I think they have second thoughts before they enter it. And, yeah, they're trying to rebuild and reconstitute the losses, including the economic losses. So they've stayed on the sidelines, and that's okay. What's important to understand is, ultimately, as long as you have a radical Islamist group, terrorist group, right next to your doorstep, this is not thousands of miles away from, say, New York. This is 5 meters, or if you want, 40 miles from Tel Aviv, okay? And literally hundreds of meters from Israeli communities right next to it. As long as you have that and you have, and that is to be very strong and to hit them every time. And one of the things we have to be strong at are their lies. This is a good one. I mean, this is where the Palestinian propaganda machine was caught red-handed. They said that we in Israel killed 5 children. Well, they didn't tell you the truth, and this was caught. Those 5 children were killed when Islamic Jihad rocket that was aimed at Israel misfired, fell on these kids. So they actually murdered their own children in the process of trying to murder us. I think it's both a physical battle, but it's also a moral and political battle, and frankly, a public relations battle too, because sometimes the mainstream media doesn't cover the fact is just lies. And you know what the basic difference is between Israel and them? They fire at civilians while hiding behind civilians. We try to target the terrorists while avoiding as much as we can civilian casualties. And that's the difference between a free society, a democracy, and these terrorist killers who follow this radical ideology. And by the way, they're not aiming at us. They're not aiming at us. They're aiming at you. I mean, we're the small Satan. You're the big Satan. As I sometimes tell my European friends, and I don't want to offend them, they're middle-sized Satan. Mm-hmm. But we're the small Satan sitting on the front lines, defending freedom, but their ultimate target, given that they're really subsidiaries of Iran, Iran is calling the shots. And Iran, the big target, is you. We're just in the way.
It is what we represent in this country, what Israel represents, and all free societies represents. And finally, Mr. Prime Minister, what would you say to those in America who, they always blame Israel first? Some in Congress voted against Iron Dome that is saving lives now. What do you say to those who always point the finger at you?
Well, I think they've got it backwards. Israel is not the problem in the Middle East. Israel is the solution. I made peace with 4 Arab states. You know why? Because they realize they want to seize the future. They want to have Israeli technology. And frankly, they rely on us to help protect them from the threat of Iran and radical Islam. There's a big battle in the world today, in the Islamic world, between the modernists and the medievalists. Israel stands squarely with the modernists. And the people who attack Israel are basically standing with the medievalists, people who want to bring you back to the Dark Ages. And they buy all this nonsense and propagate it. Israel is a force for good. It's a force for democracy. It's a force for modernity. It's a force for stability. And I'll tell you one thing else, Eric. Israel is the best ally of the United States because we've provided intelligence that has saved many, many American lives. And as long as we're in the Middle East, it's not going to be overrun by the likes of Iran and its proxies.
Yeah.
And I think that serves our purposes, obviously, but also yours.
That is certainly something for the Biden administration. Finally, it's an unusual time because you're not prime minister through all these times. The interim prime minister, Lapid, of course, is there. Do you think you can get a governing coalition finally to resume the office you held for so long?
I think so. I think this year is a lot of Israelis' time to consider what the alternatives look like, and I think they can appreciate the things that we did and the things we'll do. But in times of crisis like this,